Welcome to day. Hello, and can I add my welcome to everyone to day 3 of TAC's virtual summer school. As Kathy said, I'm Marjorie McLaughlin. I teach here in San Diego, and we're going to be having a little bit of dancing today, not quite as much as a regular dance class. I'm going to do a presentation on Thomas Wilson. But before I launch into that, I would like to introduce and thank my supporters here, Ward and Cynthia Flaherty, who are my good friends, and in their home, they have disrupted their home in a significant way so that we can do this. Kim and Ken Fernsky and Carolyn Brewer, dancers in San Diego. And so let's actually, if we can share the screen and get to the PowerPoint, I'll take it from there.
Can I just interrupt to say, if people are watching, I've got the presentation spotlighted, but you probably find it works best if you switch to speaker view and sort of full-sized.
Right. If you move, there's a horizontal bar between the view of the window, the little window where I am, and that will enlarge the slides. So a fair bit of this is PowerPoint. I'm going to talk about some historical developments in Scottish country dancing. If you have questions, this obviously interactive is a little bit of a problem with the Zoom, but please post any questions in chat, and Gordon will keep an eye on things, and if time permits, I'll see if I can't answer some questions. Right, so what we're going to look at this morning is a snapshot of country dancing as it was done in the Regency period. Thomas Wilson was an English dancing master. His name may be familiar to many of you. Lots of his dances appear in the RSCDS books. We don't know a lot about Mr. Wilson. He had 3 or 4 studios in London. He held loads and loads of dances and classes and so on. He was quite a self-promoter. And we have no pictures of him, which is a little surprising since he lived until 1854, but apparently no one has found one. But the little caricature in the upper left is ostensibly Mr. Wilson and his wife. We know there was a Mrs. Wilson. There's a dance called Mrs. Wilson's Hornpipe. And he was described by a contemporary of his as quite short, very stout, and very ugly. Well, there we are. So I guess that counts, right? So we're going to take a look at, why is that not advancing? Sorry, my slide is not advancing. There, okay. So I don't want to talk, we don't know a lot about Wilson's personal life, but I wanted to introduce you to this website, if you have not already had occasion to see it, regencydances.org. And they have, the website has dozens of essays, video clips, animations of dances. It's really, I think, very interesting if you want to delve a little bit more into what dancing might have been like during the late 18th and early 19th century. The only article I've ever been able to find on Wilson's life is this one. It's quite short, it's about 20 pages, by Paul Cooper, who is the research editor for this database. And if you want to look at it, there's a link there, and I would encourage you to have a look. The dancers that participate in this dance style and in this organization tend to be replicating costumes, music, and dance style of that period. It's not quite so much the, shall we say, evolved form of social dancing that we engage in, but we share a common historical thread. And I know people who do Regency dancing and who do English country dancing, and you'll see much of the common threads that we all share. And this database, I think, or this website is a good place to take a look. And also, just again, some background information that we don't have time to go into today. These are PDFs that we will post the PowerPoint, and you'll be able to download them. If you have any trouble, just let me know. In 2013, I wrote an article for the Scottish Country Dancer magazine, which is still available on the RSCDS website, or you may have your hard copy sitting on your shelf. It's just an article on Mr. Wilson's specific influence on our country dancing, and it's some of it is what I'll be talking about today. As some of you know, I have been at this for 35 years. Oh, yikes. So I've made presentations at workshops in various places, and I found that it was useful, depending on the nature of the workshop and the presentation, to have a handout. This is literally a brief history of Scottish country dancing. It's available, readily available. I haven't published it anywhere. You're welcome to download the PDF. It's really not my original research. It's a distillation of material that I have gleaned from scholars like Tom and Joan Flett, Hugh Thurston, George Emerson, and Hugh Foss, among others. And then lastly, I'm a librarian. It's what we do. I have, over the years, developed a bibliography on sources about the history of country dancing, not just Scottish country dancing, but country dancing in general. And again, you're welcome to take a look at that. It's fascinating to me, since I started all of this in the late 1980s, is how many of these things are now available digitally. So you can go to, the Library of Congress has a fabulous collection of digital dance manuals, and of course the British Library, the National Library of Scotland. So lots of these things are available. And again, if the interest is there, let me know. As some of you know, I can witter on about this endlessly, and I won't. Okay, all right.
Let me do a quick change here.
Oh, all right, excuse me, little change here. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
It's not advanced.
Click in the window.
Will he have to advance the slides for
No,
me?
I think he just has to actually.
Oh, okay, here we are, all right. So, Thomas Wilson, he was a prodigious writer. He published, I'd say hundreds, but certainly many, many dance manuals, books of music and dance, lots of essays on etiquette. He was quite opinionated on how one ought to behave in a dance class, how one ought to behave at a fancy ball. And it's that body of work that's come down to us now that has really given him an outsized influence on the course of country dancing, both Scottish country dancing, English country dancing. And we'll take a look at some of the differences here. But I'm going to read this because you may not be able to see it clearly on your screen, and I can't see it a whole lot on mine. But this is one of my favorite clips of Mr. Wilson. No lady or gentleman must, during a country dance, attempt at reels or other figures in the same room. Snapping the fingers in country dancing and reels, and the sudden howl or yell too frequently, the howl or yell introduced by some Scotch parties as partly national with them, too frequently practiced, ought particularly to be avoided, as partaking too much of the customs of barbarous nations. I guess that would be us, right? The character and effect by such means given to the dance being adapted only to the stage and by no means suited to the ballroom. So there we are. But other than the fact that it's kind of funny and amusing because he's talking about us this way, I want to draw your attention to the, just move this over so it's bigger. I want you to draw attention to the engraving. This is the frontispiece to Wilson's 1816 Companion to the Ballroom. And I just want to take a quick look at the different dance styles that you're watching here. In the foreground is a piper and four people doing what all of us know perfectly well is a reel of four. Right? The men are in the kilt, the arms are raised, they're facing each other in a formation for a reel of four. So that was the Highland dancing. That was our indigenous tradition of Highland dancing. In the background are couples facing each other across the set. Now, there happen to be four couples here, but in fact, the practice of a four-couple set as the standard is really not prevalent in this time period. That was something that was introduced really post 1923. So even the original edition of Book 1 says sets are usually 5 or 6 couples long. So we have adapted a 4-couple set as our standard. But in fact, in English dancing, as they would be doing here, and even today in English dancing, contra dancing, and reelers, all dance in long Ys for as many as will. And if it was a 3-couple dance, you would take hand 6, and every first couple would start and progress up and down the line for as many repetitions of the dance as was appropriate for the length of the set. The MC would decide when to stop and start, which again, they still do today. Just briefly, there's people on the upper right doing a waltz. And in the foreground is a couple doing maybe perhaps a mazurka or a pavana, a couple dance. These were all done during this time period. I'm a little surprised he doesn't have a quadrille in this engraving, but there's not a whole lot of room left, because the waltz and the quadrille, post-Napoleonic, and so within the Regency period, those dances swept from the continent into England. And by the end of the 19th century, country dancing in England was virtually non-existent. However, it had become considerably more popular in Scotland by that time. So I think the point just at this moment is Highland dancing, Scots dances, and country dances were not the same thing. And you'll see that as we proceed through the slides. But over the course of the 19th century, as is our wont, the Scots exerted their influence on country dances, and we began to sort of make them our own, as distinguished from what really here, without the adjective English, was just plain country dancing. So now we have English country dancing and Scottish country dancing. So this book the 1816 Companion has hundreds of dances in it. And the RCDS has reproduced many of them. That's quite a lot of dances. Now, remember, at this time, not maybe past book 21 and so on, Miss Milligan was quite determined that modern dances were not to be published, that there were so many good old ones. And so, though of course today we have tens of thousands of dances being available, I think it's quite important to note how many of the Wilson dances the Publications Committee chose to include and interpret. And I'm going to make some comments and some observations about how they were reconstructed and assumptions that were made. I don't mean to cast aspersions. I'm not in any way trying to be critical. And in fact, during the, as I was creating this presentation, I had an aha moment that I'm going to share with you later. So, all the way back to 1929, so somehow somebody in the Publications Committee, probably Miss Milligan, had a copy of, now this, oh, I'm not going to hold it up, it's too hard to see. It's quite a big book. It has, as I said, hundreds of dances in it. And these first two, Jenny's Bobby and Dumbarton Drums, are a little bit of outliers, but we are actually going to take a look at Jenny's Bobby this morning. And then book 8 was Peggy's Love. Now, in the original book 8, the Publications Committee simply said, collected in Moray. And, you know, for a historian, that's just so frustrating. Collected by whom? What did it look like? How did, you know, so we know nothing about it, it was just collected by somebody. Well, in fact, the figures in that version of Peggy's Love that the Society published are very, very close to what appear in the Wilson book, with some interesting variations. And so those, Jenny's Bobby and Peggy's Love, are the two dances we're going to take a look at, and my worthy supporters here are going to help to demonstrate. And as Kathy said, if you have room to dance, please get up, right? Now, for me, book 10 is an aha moment for Miss Milligan. She discovered Thomas Wilson. And she, from that point forward, and I shouldn't say she/Publications Committee. There were other members of the committee, but she exerted certainly quite an influence on what was going to be published and how it was going to be interpreted. And if you look at this fairly extensive list of dances, you'll see some that we still do. right? None So Pretty, goodness, that's frequently on programs. Waverly, right? And there are some others that you would see on a program today. Just take a note under book 15, 1949, where it says, double triangles, Button and Whitaker. So if you take a look through any of the cited sources of the dances in the RCDS books, if you see Button and Whitaker, it's Thomas Wilson. It came from his books. They were his music publishers. They were not the dancing masters and the one making choices about what dances and what music would be used. But if you look at this, there are some dances that we don't see very often anymore. Somebody said, Peggy's Love, oh yeah, my exam dance. And for those of you who are teachers out there, that can often consign it to I'll get back to it another time. Lord Roslin's Fancy and the Golden Pheasant, Unit 5 candidate exam dances, right? We don't do them socially anymore, and actually it's kind of a shame. Even with our modern styling, there's still something of a good challenge. Peggy's Love, when I was younger, was frequently danced, but not so much anymore. So I like taking a look at how these dances were adapted to see why our style and our fashions have changed. I mean, dance is a living, breathing art form. So clothing changes, music style changes, lots of things change over time, and that's perfectly normal and natural to have happen. So I'm not suggesting that anybody go back and redo these dances to make them easier or to make them more like they were in 1816, but it's just interesting to consider how things have changed over the last, say, 150 to 200 years. 200 years, yes, I guess it is. Right, so if you were to look through Wilson's 1816 Companion to the Ballroom, this is what you would find. You would find the name of the dance and a tune, and then you would find below it single figures or double figures. Mr. Wilson, and I think pretty typically of the time, the tune was the dance. And unlike our arrangements where we have three or four tunes in a given sequence of a dance, like today's English dancing and contra dancing, the same tune is played over and over again, no matter how many couples. So the musicians would vary instrumentation, they would vary harmonies and so on, so that you weren't just listening to the same melody over and over, and could be quite clever about it. Single figure or double figure, to be maybe a little glib, but to Wilson, as long as the figures fit the number of bars of the tune, and as long as you progressed, he really didn't care what figures you danced. That said, and he does say that in one of his books, but that said, all of his publications gave you examples of figures. The single figure was usually easier, the double figure was the more challenging figure. And what I said before, that every third or fourth couple would start a dance in a long wise set, that wasn't the case with Wilson. When you arrived at a dance, you did not know what the program was going to be. Each lady, as she arrived with her partner or whomever, was given a number. And you would be asked to call the dance. The MC would have everyone come up and make a long line, and the lady with number 1 would get to decide what the dance was and which figure you were going to do, and then the MC would turn to the musicians and say, "Find None So Pretty." I can't even imagine how they did it. So that couple, having called for the double figure of None So Pretty, would then start the dance with the couples below them, and nobody else started dancing until that first couple had passed them. So if you were at the bottom of the hall, the refreshments better be pretty close, because you might have a long wait. But that couple was supposed to show everyone how to do it. There were no cribs, there was no briefing, you watched the first couple. It's said that Wilson's practice of doing that was not typical of Regency dances, but that's what he said you do. And if you called for the double figure and you couldn't execute it properly, you were given another chance. If you failed the second time, you were banished to the foot of the set. right? Okay, so that's single and double figures. You had some choices. So if I were to brief this None So Pretty, for those of you out there, I know many are teachers and experienced dancers, and you might recognize it from the brief. So let me just do it, and then we'll take a look at, we're not going to dance None So Pretty, but I just want you to look at the figures and compare them with what we do today. The double figure. Swing with right hands round second couple, and then with the left. Set 3 across, set 3 in your places. Whole figure, contrary corners. Now that might not sound familiar because that's not a figure that we do, but we'll get back to that in a moment. Chain figure 4 with the top couple. Couples were positional, so as the 2s moved up, they were now the top couple. So chain figure 4 with the top couple, Allemande. Now, you would say, if you were familiar with the modern version of None So Pretty, oh yeah, that's the same dance. Well, that presents a couple of problems. Our None So Pretty is a 40-bar figure, a 40-bar dance. So, take a look at the music. I am not a musician, but even I know what those vertical bars mean. This is a 32-bar tune. So somehow we ended up with a 40-bar dance out of a 32-bar tune. So just tuck that away and think about it for a moment. Somebody's asking how much choice did Miss Milligan have on the influence of dances? Outsized, I would say. All right, so just think there's None So Pretty. It was 32 bars, but the figures sure sound the same as what we do today. Another one, Rakish Heilemann. Let me read that to you. And again, it will probably sound very similar. I have to do this because the screen is too small. The Rakish Heilemann double figure. Hey on your own sides, lead down the middle and up again, Allemande. Turn corners, the double triangle. Singular, double triangle. Well, that's the same dance that's in Book 19, isn't it? Well, here again, this is a 32-bar tune. So, I don't want to say that people made assumptions or made things up. And in fact, in both the Rakish Heilemann and None So Pretty, there's a wonderful bit of serendipity in terms of how it came down to us. So, if all they had was the 1816 Companion to the Ballroom with the tune and these descriptions of figures, there's nothing that says how you to dance those figures. There's nothing that shows you a diagram or tells you exactly what to do. But there were 2 clues that I'm surprised were not looked at more closely. One is, first, it's a 32-bar tune, right? And the second is this indication at the bottom. A horizontal bar with 2 dots below meant that was an 8-bar figure. A horizontal bar with a dot above meant it was a 4-bar figure. And, okay, thank you. And those were in, if you can see it closely, and it might be easier if you get the PowerPoint later, but hey on your own sides, down the middle and up, and Allemande. The same in None So Pretty. Swing round, by the way, for Wilson, swing meant right hand or left hand, turn was 2 hands. Okay? That was 8 bars. Set 3 across is 4, set in your places. Whole figure, contrary corners is 8. Chain figure 4 with the top couple and Allemande. You can see how many bars each of those takes, which does not correspond to the way we do it today. Okay, and the same is true of the Rakish Heilemann. So, what the Publications Committee did not have was the complementary complete system of country dancing. It's another big book, and it's like an early Pillings. It's like Keith Rose was signed up for this. I don't know if he's here. It's like the diagrams. It shows you how to do the figures, how many bars they take, how you get from point A to point B. So a chain figure 4 was not our reel of 4. There is no such thing as a reel of 4 in the English dance repertoire. It did not exist for Wilson. It was a Highland Scotch thing. It was basically rights and lefts, 1 bar per hand. But we had a reel of 4, so somebody said, well, I guess that's what we should be doing. The other bit of serendipity is, and I'm sure many of you already know about this, the misinterpretation of the double triangles. Wilson calls it double triangle, Miss Milligan called it double triangles. And I have it on fairly good authority from Dr. Alistair McFadgen, who was a wonderful scholar, chairman of the society, and archivist, that she arrived at a publications committee one day and said, Eureka! That's what he said, Eureka! I have found a new figure. It is the double triangles. And of course, starting, around book 15, it pops up all the time in dances like the Golden Pheasant, Lord Rosalind's Fancy, and the Rakish Highlandman. And as we know it, back to back, hands extended, all pas de basque. Well, no. It was actually an 8-bar figure, all done in skip change, where you dance across the first couple of dances across the set, passing left shoulders, dance around their first corners, pass each other left shoulder up and down, around their second corners, and back to their own side. So fine, the number of bars is correct, but the arrangement is completely different. And so some of those old dances, the getting into the double triangles position, the way our modern double triangles is done, is awkward sometimes, okay? That said, there's the 2 bits of serendipity that come out of these 2 dances. The double triangles, we have a perfectly wonderful modern figure. It is in hundreds of modern dances, exactly as Miss Milligan described it. There are variations on double triangles. So it may not work as well, although it does work in the older dances, but it really works well in the modern dances. That's part of the growth and change of dancing. The other is that this tune for None So Pretty is not so great. The one that the society chose, 40 bars, so be it, is actually a much better tune, and certainly we still do enjoy dancing it. So those are 2 examples of what happened and how did that happen. The other thing about the 32 bars is most musicians will say, fine, we'll play 40 bars, but it's not balanced. 40 bars of a tune just doesn't quite work. 48 is fine, right? 32 is great. And especially for our modern musicians who have to come up with these arrangements of multiple tunes, finding other 40-bar tunes that work well can be a challenge. But nonetheless, that's where we are. Okay, so oops, sorry, I'm kind of running ahead here. Right, so guess what? I think we're going to move a little bit. Sorry, I've whittled on here. So one of the dances that I want to take a look at is Jenny's Bobby, which was published in book 5, and it's a 24-bar dance, 24-bar strathspey. So can I have the dancers come on up? Sorry, they've been sitting for half an hour. So it's published in book 5 as a 24-bar strathspey. And if any of you would like to get up and move around a little bit, please come and join us. So the figures read quite straightforward. First and second couple set and dance half rights and lefts, but it's 1 bar per hand, so because that's only a 4-bar phrase. And then they repeat that. So can we just walk that? So it's a, oh, sorry. Yes, we have to unshare for a moment so you can see the dancers. Thank you. Great. Okay. So in a modern strathspey, so we will set, and then 1 bar per hand, right hand and left hand. Polite turns it's pretty quick for a polite turn, but it's doable. Set, and again, right hand and left hand. First couple in 4 bars will lead down the middle and back again. You'll be right and right. Yeah, there we are. And then the second couple steps in for an allemande. And so again, this is all modern styling. This is as we would do it today, in and under, and retire to place. Right, so we are going to dance it twice through as a modern 24-bar strathspey from book 5. Please come and join us. We're using Ken Thompson's RCDS recording. Sorry, I have to cue up the music. twice through, and we're going to go back to the PowerPoint for a moment. So perhaps, again, 24 bars, like 40 bars, is a little bit unbalanced. Certainly, we don't have many 24-bar dances in our repertoire. But I think this would be a perfectly lovely dance to use with newer dancers, beginner dancers, to introduce Strathspey and Down the Middle and Up and Allemande, something they will see frequently in their dancing. So back to the PowerPoint. Just move this over.
Progress to the next one.
So this is Jenny's Bobby as it appears in Wilson. And again, we're just having a look at the tune first. It's a 16-bar tune, right? It is not a 24-bar tune. But the single figure says set and half rights and lefts with second couple and back again, 8 bars. There's the horizontal bar. And lead down the middle and up again, Allemande, 8 bars. Oh, I see. Okay? So I'm not going to concern myself with the others. So it really is, sorry, let me catch my breath here for a second. So how do you make down the middle and up Allemande into 8 bars instead of 16 bars? Okay? And again, what the Publications Committee did not have were these incredible diagrams that showed people how these figures would be done. But fundamentally, at this time, down the middle and up, whether it was 4 bars or 8 bars, was always a progressive figure. You danced down the middle and up to second place, or you slipped down the middle and up to second place. If it was a 4-bar figure, which it is here, it's just slipping down and slipping back to second place, the twos having stepped up. And the Allemande was not our 8-bar progressive Allemande. It was a back-to-back, right? So can we walk this? Now, the beginning, the set and half rights and lefts. Now remember, this would not be our setting step or our traveling step. It would be a little bit gentler. It would be more of a lilting pas de basque and either a walking or a chassé. I've got some samples I can show you in a moment. And I'm asking them not to take hands for the 1 bar per hand for the rights and lefts, because I think that the polite turn is just a little too bit of a challenge. So let's just walk it, and then we'll have the music, right? So it's a lilting pas de basque to the right and to the left, then right shoulder and quickly left shoulder, and repeat. Set and right shoulder and left shoulder. There we are. 2 hands join, 4 slip steps, and 1, 2, 3, close, back to second place. And the Allemande was simply a back-to-back. Right shoulder, passing round, and there we are. That's 16 bars, right? First of all, I'm sorry, I should have said this at the very beginning. I'm very, very appreciative of the support of Muriel Johnston and Andy Embry, who recorded the music for us as it appears in Wilson, as opposed to our modern version. Can we go back to the PowerPoint just for a second? Sorry. Because the other thing that I want to show you, in addition to the, sorry, Ward.
We'll get there.
Okay, so in addition to the number of bars, notice that the tune says allegro. Allegro is lively and brisk. It's not andante as a Strathspey would be. Wilson talks about Strathspeys, but I have yet to find a single dance in his book that says andante for the music. They're all reels. So I'm not quite sure how that happened, but that's just one other little clue that was there, that this was a tune that was played allegro. Right? All right, so let's, and you're welcome to come up and join with this. So let's do it once with the 16 bars, just the 16 bars, and then we'll repeat it. Andy Embry has recorded the Wilson Jenny's Bobby for us. We're going to do it just once as 16 bars. You're welcome to watch or to try, and then we'll do it twice in the Wilson style. Thank you. Wilson style. And set. And right and left. Down the middle. 1, 2, 3, close. Back, 2, 3, close. Back to back. Thank you. Now, it was not my tech support over here. Right. So, if any of you have done English country dancing, you know that a chord is not common. There's a pickup note at the very beginning of the dance, and then after X number of repetitions, when the MC tells the musicians out, time to do one more repetition, you'll always hear the instrumentation kind of take on a flourish, so that you think, oh, this is the last time through, and then it just stops. However, these are modern Scottish country dancers, and they need a chord. So Andy and I agreed we would give them a chord, right? So we're going to dance it twice through, and we'd love it if some of you have the space available to get up and try it. Let your pas de basque lilt, right? You can use a skipping step, or you can do a walking step, which is what we're doing. So let's listen to Peggy's Love, a la Thomas Wilson. We'll dance 32 bars with a chord. Thank you, Ward. And two, three, and up, 2, 3, and back to back. Allemand. And again. Down, 2, 3, and step up. Great, thank you. Excellent, excellent. It's gentle, it's lilting, but it's brisk. It's not a stress fade. So there we are. Right. So back to the PowerPoint for a moment. Great. Okay. So let's very quickly take a look at how we sorted that out. Oh, and just in case, Hugh Thurston's Scotland's Dances, and by the way, there are a couple of copies of that available on the auction if you don't already own the book. So this is a seminal work in the history of Scottish country dancing from 1954, and I would refer you to page 137, because he actually specifically talks about Jenny's Bobby. Now, you're not going to be able to read this whole screen, but it is on the PowerPoint. But basically, he says, the alteration of an old dance of an old dance and an old figure to a modern one with the same name is not a justifiable change. Never mind. He specifically talks about Jenny's Bobby, and he said that it would be a good dance is true, but it's equally true it would not be Jenny's Bobby. So, yes, and I think that's fair to say, but here we are. So that's in the PowerPoint. You're welcome to read it, or you can go and look at page 137 of your own copy of Scotland's Dances. So here's down the middle and up, and if you can see the highlighted yellow that says with one hand or both hands. So you could slip down the middle and back to second place, or you could, with right hand and right, go down the middle and up. And the Allemand, there it is, the back-to-back. I have found in doing the research and in making presentations with people in the class who actually also participate in other dance traditions, the Allemand is an almost universal figure, and it appears in different ways in different dance traditions. But this one was fairly standard at the time. Clearly, our modern Allemand is is a very different progressive figure. I'll come back to that in a moment. Now, it says here at the bottom of the Allemande, you use 3 chassés jetés assemblés. I did not ask them to do that. I do, however, have some clips of people doing just that. So from the Regency, regencydances.org website, they have video clips of someone in Regency costume executing different styles of dance. And I think you may need to do this.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah. So this is a chassé traveling step. And he's going to do it again. And then he's going to do it at halftime. Good. Okay, can you pause that one? I'd like all the dance teachers who are in the audience to note where the hop appears in that that chassé step. Now, here's a setting step. So, again, not unlike, of course, what we do, without really the precision and the jeté. Thank you. And finally, let me show you a chassé, jeté, assemblé, a figure, I mean, a step I have never been able to successfully execute. I always get the back foot in the wrong place. Thank you. All right. So those are just examples. The steps not terribly different than what we do today, but clearly we have put our own mark on all of these steps. Can we go to the, let's go to the next screen. Whoops, I think we have to get, oh. There, okay, so just very briefly, strathspey was known, but really not, does not appear in a lot of dances that I've been able to find. But let's just take a quick look at strathspey traveling and setting. Good, and now let's go on to the next one. I don't think we... And then a strathspey setting step. Thank you. So I think that what strikes me is that the strathspey was done at a somewhat brisker pace than we would dance it today. And certainly these do not sound like Scottish traditional strathspeys with a snap, right? But they were known. They were known. And I think that may be why some of these dances were interpreted as strathspeys rather than the allegro tune that was in the initial publication. So another one that Wilson published that we adopted, and as I say, in the original book 8, it says collected in Moray. However, when the Publications Committee recently revised the books and put the collected books together in the A4 publications, they do say that it was from Wilson's Companion to the Ballroom, because the figures are so similar, although he left out the Allemande. But that's the note that's in the book. So here's the RCDS version. We're going to just walk it once. I should say this. Peggy's Love is one of those dances that I remember doing frequently back in the day. Don't see it on programs very often anymore. It has some challenges in it, and it's also candidate dance, as I have pointed out to me. But what really struck me is that when I went to look for a video of this, every one of the videos in the dance database are demonstration teams. And I thought that was quite telling, right? It is a dance with a challenge to it, and sometimes you want a challenge. So we're going to walk through the figures just to refresh your brain if you haven't done it in a while, and then we're going to look at the Edinburgh branch demonstration team performing the dance. So can we come back up? Oh, and I will need to dance. So let me just brief the figures, right? First couple cast off 2 places while the third couple set and dance up to the top. Third couple cast back to place while the ones set and dance up to the top. First couple cross down below the second couple and cast off behind the third couple to finish facing first corners. Set to first corners, set to second corners, finish facing down to dance down below the third couple, the woman crossing in front of her partner to cast up into second place. The couple above will step in to join them for a half poussette. Right, so we'll just walk the figures, and again, if you're so inclined. Right, so just walking it. First couple is going to cast while the third couple sets and leads up, and I kind of prefer right nearer hands for that. They will then cast while we set, and we lead up to dance up to the top. First couple, cross down between the second couple and cast around the third couple and finish facing first corners. Set to first corners on the right, travel on the left to face second corners. Set to second corner on the right and finish in the middle facing down. Dance down between the third couple, crossing the lady in front, casting up into second place. The twos come in to join us for a half poussette. So out to the side, into the center, halfway round, and retire to place. Oh, right. Oh, sorry. We're doing the modern one, right. Yalma, yes, thank you. And the first and second couples progress again with an Alabama. Well, there we are. Thank you very much. My brain is clearly in the 19th century. All right, so that's the modern version. Let's watch the Edinburgh demonstration team execute this in a very large set.
Okay. Share. And there we go. Here we are. That should work well
Okay.
enough.
Well, needless to say, beautifully danced, and I'm sure some of you in the audience probably recognize some friends dancing in that set. So that's the modern version of the dance, and it does include an allemande, right? But let's take a look at the reconstruction from Thomas Wilson. First 8 bars are exactly the same. Yep, I've got it. Yep. First 8 bars are exactly the same. First couple cast off at the same time as the third couple set and lead up, third couple cast, and so on. Cross over one couple. For Wilson, that was simply crossing across the set and then casting into second place in 4 bars. Then a half figure around the third couple, and then set contrary corners. Now, we saw that previously in None So Pretty, if you remember that far back. It's not a figure that we customarily do, so it was decided to use the set to first and set to second corners. It is in Wilson, however, an 8-bar figure. Leads through the bottom half poussette. He does not have an allemande in the dance. So this is his version. Once again, notice that the barring is indicated. The figures are very much like what we do, but it says allegro. So once again, we don't have a strathspey. In fact, it was a reel. And I want to thank Muriel Johnston for pointing that out to me many years ago. And I do have Muriel playing the tune for us as it appears here in Wilson. Sounds very much alike our strathspey, but it is in fact allegro and or a reel. And so here's just a quick look at the diagrams. Cross over one couple, you cast straight over and cast one place. Then now this half figure around the bottom, the diagram looks a little bit backwards, but it's there. Set contrary corners. Essentially, you set advancing towards your first corner, you dance around to your second corner, you set advancing to your second corner, and you retire back to place. So this is the full diagram of the figure, which again was not available to the publications committee. Here's lead through the bottom. Here's the half poussette. It's not our poussette at all. This would be referred to in English dancing as a draw. Your hands are joined and you're basically dancing a counterclockwise back to back as a couple. So it is not progressive. Of course, our half poussette is also. Our full poussette, 8 bars, is not progressive. Am I saying that right? Yes. But this is only 4 bars, so the allemande didn't come into it. So that's what makes up the, whoops, go back, all right? So I'll put this up on the screen again, although we're gonna go back to the audience. So remember, we're not doing the strathspey steps, we are doing the lilting pas de basque and walking, right? So, thank you, Ward. Oh, yes, yes, Ward is now going to be on screen, right? So we're just going to walk it Wilson style, and then we'll dance it, right? So, one's cast to third place as the 3s set and lead up. They cast off as we set and lead up. Then we cross straight over, the 2s will step up, we cast, and then a half figure of 8 down through the third couple. So now we're in second place on our own sides. So set contrary corners, we would set advancing to our first corner, we would then turn and face our second corners, we set to our second corners, and on the last 2 bars we simply retire back to place, right? Then we lead down between the third couple, it's much simpler. Nope, not this time. And they step in to join us for the half poussette, which is really just a back to back, and it's brisk. It's brisk, in 4 bars to get round. So it's quite a different set of figures, perhaps a little bit simplified from what we do it today. So you're gonna have to just dash on in here, right? So we're going to play, so we're gonna just dance it once through, this is Muriel Johnston. And it's actually, thank you. Muriel recorded this twice for me. It appears in Wilson as a 2/4 time signature, but we both agreed that fitting the bars of the dance to the music played that way felt a little awkward. Could you just play the 2/4? I mean, it can be done, but. Just loud this a little bit. But it's actually quite a nice tune. Good, let me play the 4/4.
It switched.
It will switch.
So this is the 2/4.
No, this is the 4/4. Yeah. So it's a little bit brisker, right? Right. So we're gonna dance this to the 4/4 time signature, which is not as it appears originally in Wilson. When you just played.
The other one sounded easier.
We think the other one sounded easier. Well, maybe I misinterpreted. And you could be skipping now. Set contrary corners. I'll talk about that in a minute. And retired place. Lead between the threes. Here we go. Good, okay. So there we have Peggy's Love for Mr. Wilson. I think it could actually be quite a nice little reel if we change the name. So here again, if we're just, oh, can you put the pointer in?
Oh, yeah.
Oops, there we go. All right, so here's the 2/4 time signature, and here's the barring. And so as I began to think about, well, so this is what the Publications Committee had. They did not have this. So how come they made some assumptions, even though there were indications in the 1816 companion as to what, oh, sorry. Here, I've moved myself well ahead here. Even though there were indications as to how many bars them should take, and the music itself telling you that. Well, I had an aha moment. Would you hold this up to the camera? This is Allen's Ballroom Guide from about, I don't know if there's a date, new edition. So, as I mentioned earlier, by the end of, and this is a little tiny book. It was an aid memoir that was they were published by the tens of thousands. And in them, thank you, and in them, in Scotland, now this was published in Glasgow, there were lots of these. So think now, we've moved away from 1816, that book disappeared for a while, and then it was rediscovered in the turn of the 20th century. But these books and these dances are what had become popular Scottish country dances, not dances from England. I mean, back in 1816 and even earlier than that, the landed gentry in Scotland would have the means to travel to London, to Bath, to York, and attend these balls and attend these dances. And they would write some of them down and bring them back. And eventually, you do find published books of country dancing in Scotland. The earliest one that we know of is in the Hume manuscript, My Only Joe and Deario, that was from 1704. I mean, people were going down to England very early and bringing things back. But even by the middle of the 18th century, with the Mingus manuscript, you see the influence of the Scottish traditions on country dances as they had been brought back. They would be longwise for as many as will, but set and turn corners, reels of three. You don't find that in the English dance tradition. That's Scottish, that's from the Highland tradition. And even, of course, our strathspeys as we know them today. The reel of four, I mentioned earlier, that didn't exist, right? It was a Highland tradition, but we incorporated it into what was evolving as our country dancing. So by the turn of the 20th century, these little aid memoirs contained dances which, if I read them to you, will be very familiar. Blue Bonnets, Circassian Circle, Corn Rigs, the Cumberland Reel, Deal Among the Tailors, the Duke of Perth, Flowers of Edinburgh, etc., etc. Glasgow Highlanders is in here, right? So my aha moment was that the Publications Committee from 1923 on these were the dances they knew. These were the figures they knew. And by that time, a Scottish allemande for a strathspey was well evolved. And so it wasn't just a question of making it up. Well, a little bit. The double triangles is clearly an outlier, right? That was made up because we didn't have that in our tradition at that time. So Miss Milligan made some decisions. And I'm saying Miss Milligan because truly she really was the driving force, I think, in the early Publications Committee. But they knew these dances from Scotland. And so I think to be applying what you know and what's familiar to you, even though some of the original material that you're working from doesn't seem to mesh, you do the best you can, right? And so we are left with a wonderful modern figure in the double triangles, and we have some great strathspeys, and we have a better tune for None So Pretty. So things evolve, things change. But I think that's a really important point in why some of these dances don't come across in our early books the way they were in Wilson's publications. So that's just my kind of take on the matter. And I'd like to leave you with a few of Mr. Wilson's many rules of ballroom etiquette. No couple must leave a dance till it's finished. Well, I don't want to join the green room. Okay. Any couple standing up after the dance has begun must stand at the bottom. When the couple that called the dance has gone down to 3 couples for a triple minor, the second couple must begin. So this is why I'm saying you watched the first couple do it, and when they passed you, that's when you picked up and started, which is right. No lady or gentleman during a country dance must attempt reels or other figures in the same room. Can't have the same dance twice. I guess they didn't have encores. Should any couple, after calling or selecting the dance, find themselves incapable of performing it, they may call another. If the same difficulty occurs, the master of ceremonies can transfer the call to the next couple and place the couple that failed at the bottom of the set. And when a dance is finished, the master of ceremonies should make a signal to the leader of the band to prevent any unnecessary noise or clapping of hands. He was quite the taskmaster. Anyway, so we've got a few minutes before Alan's class begins. I just want to say thank you for wandering down this merry path with me. Thanks, of course, to all of my supporters and friends. And Gordon, if there were any questions, I wasn't watching the chat, but I'd be...
There are 2 questions, Marcy. It's Allison here, and they're kind of opposite. One question from Laura Russell. How much influence do you think Mrs. Stewart had on the choice of dances in the early RSCDS?
Actually, that's an excellent question. And I would have to say at the very beginning, she had an enormous influence. So again, I know we've got some very experienced dancers out there, but I hope there's a good, healthy number of newer dancers. So Mrs. Stewart of Fastnafly and Miss Milligan formed the Scottish Country Dance Society, having been introduced by Michael Dyack, who's a music publisher. And the first meeting, as we all now know, was in 1923. Miss Milligan had come from a background of being a physical education instructor who used dancing as a strengthening exercises and health and so on. Mrs. Stewart was from the landed gentry. She was from a well-to-do family. She was very involved in the Girl Guides in the early days. And she realized that the Girl Guides dances were all English dances. Because the English dancing tradition, even though it kind of waned a bit in England, had still continued. She didn't know why the Girl Guides weren't doing Scottish country dances. So I'd say that in the first few books, those dances that she was familiar with were the ones that were included. There's dances in there that are clearly English dances. There are clearly things like, that are Highland dances, Reel of Four, Reel of Tulloch, those sorts of things. They were looking at all the various influences that existed at that time. And books like this little one contained the dances that were familiar. Even today, there's a certain class of Scots who dance called the reelers. Now, there's also a very popular kind of contra dance style of reeling that you can find is very popular in Scotland today, a bit like contra dancing here in the United States. But the reelers, think Downton Abbey, if you've watched the Downton Abbey series. They had about 20 dances, Duke of Perth, Hamilton, the Eights Reel, right. And they danced them in long wise for as many as will. And the ladies wore high heels, the men wore their gilly brogues. And you came as a couple, you danced as a couple all night. And that was Mrs. Stewart's milieu, if you will. So I think in the early days, she exercised a lot of influence. And then, of course, she did move away. And Miss Milligan was clearly the main mover and shaker in the society in the early days. So yes, I thanks Laura. That's a really good point. I think that these dances were a very important part of the early books.
And the other question is kind of the opposite of that from Rose. She asks, how much influence did Jean Milligan have on the choice of dances? And you kind of answered that. But...
I think the answer would be the same. Certainly she exercised her influence, as I understand it, from people who were perhaps at one point in the publications committee and others. I wasn't there back then. But I think Miss Milligan's influence is more on the style of dancing that we do rather than specific choice of dances. As I said before, in the early days, she did not like modern dances. And Hugh Foss and John Drury were not on her high on her list. She said, we have these wonderful old dances. Those are the ones we should be doing. But she was also educating an entire generation of physical education teachers. She was at Jordan Hill Academy, and they went out to the countryside throughout Scotland and throughout the UK and taught this as a physical education exercise. And part of that is what has brought us a more rigorous form of dancing and technique that may be waning slightly, I think, these days. But at the time, those physical education teachers created modern Scottish country dancing and made it as popular as it has become. So yes, styles change and so on, but I think Miss Milligan's influence has more on the style of dancing rather than perhaps the choice. And then, of course, come along, was it 1951, when the Queen Mother decided that the Reel of the 51st should be in a book. You don't say no to the Queen Mother. So that was our first modern dance that appeared in the RCDS books, and the rest, as they say, is history. Yeah, okay.
I'm guessing we still have time because I haven't had a signal yet. And so I'm going to share with you a comment that Barbara McCohen put in the chat. I think it's fascinating. Barbara thinks that Strathspey was more of a style, quote, than a thing, quote. And she says a lot of the tunes in the 1700s and early 1800s appear as a Strathspey in one book and as a reel in another book. And they were still figuring it out.
Yeah, and I thank you, Barbara. Thank you. I'm delighted you were here. She's absolutely right. And certainly they knew about Strathspeys in England, but you don't see it as a dance style until it appears in Scotland. So
Barbara also says, and I thought this was really interesting, the tune for Peggy's Love is named Lady Louisa Gordon.
yes.
And he does specify that it is a Strathspey and it doesn't appear in other books that she can find. And apparently the tune is by William Marshall.
Yes, and I kind of wish I had Muriel here because we went through a lot of this some time ago. But yes, thank you, Barbara. You're absolutely spot on, as usual.
Laura has another question, Laura Russell. Could you mention the compilation of Regency dances that you and Ellie worked on?
Oh, is Ellie here?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so it's basically what Ellie and I did was to put together a list of dances that are in the RCDS publications with the earliest known source. This was a chronology that was published by a dancer from the Boston branch many, many years ago. And as a pandemic project, after many years of thinking about it, Ellie and I decided to update it and try to find a little bit more information. And so we have reissued it. You can find it on the International Branch website, and it basically lists the dance and the source of the dance as from the earliest publication that we could locate. So they kind of run a span of decades and centuries, actually. Ellie, any comments? I don't know if you can unmute Ellie if she has any comments to make on it. But it is available. You can just download it from the IB website.
What you said, that's it. We have one more slight update to do to it, and then it's done.
Yep. And Ellie, I'm sorry. This is terrible. I've completely blanked out on his name.
Ian Goddard.
Ian Goddard, right. Ian Goddard was the dancer from Boston who put this together in the first place. And being librarians and fans of this kind of stuff, Ellie and I decided it would be a nice project to update it. So thank you. Thank you for asking, and go have a look. Anything else?
No, we don't. I will mention that please go visit the silent auction. And if you've bid again, bid on something else, please be generous. All of the monies go to support TAC and summer school. And also, please look in the chat. There's the link to the recordings, which we are recording every day and posting them on the TAC website. And don't go away, folks, because very shortly we will have a dance class with Alan Twigg.
And Allison, if I can just note that we will be sending out the links, and they'll be on the TAC website every day. But we will also post my PowerPoint, so if you do want to download any of the stuff or go to that, you can go to that Regency website anytime, regencydances.org. But we'll certainly make that available at the end.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And I have had a question, which I'm going to voice the answer to because it's easy to do. The silent auction continues until tomorrow, Saturday, July 31st. It closes at 5:45 p.m. Pacific time.
Great.
So lots of time to still bid and get the things you want to win.
Absolutely, great. Well, thank you all for joining me in this little wander through history. And again, thank you to my supporters who are apparently drifting off to have some lunch. So great, thank you all. I'm gonna have a look at the chat and just see what's going on.
All right,
All right.
well, now
Thank you.
I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Marjorie and Ward and Marjorie's helpers for making such an excellent class, and Ward being an excellent tech assistant. Marjorie, would you like to take a moment to just reintroduce the dancers?
Oh, yes, ladies. So my friend and fellow teacher, Ward Fleury, and his wife Cynthia is making her way in here right now. And as I say, this is their lovely living room with a beautiful wooden floor. And honestly, they've moved furniture, they've done everything. So I really thank them very much. Ken and Kim Ferinsky and Carolyn Brewer. So I want to thank them for helping me so much. It was just great, just great. And thanks to all of you.
Yay, thank you very much. So just before we move on to the next class, because we are going to move